On this edition for Saturday, December 7th, an update on the shooting at a Pensacola naval base. In our signature segment, Scotland eyes an opportunity for independence as Great Britain heads to the polls. Next on PBS NewsHour Weekend.
PBS NewsHour Weekend is made possible by Bernard and Irene Schwartz, Sue and Edgar Wachenheim III, the Cheryl and Philip Milstein family, Rosalind P. Walter, in memory of George O'Neill, Barbara Hope Zuckerberg, Charles Rosenblum. We try to live in the moment to not miss what's right in front of us. At Mutual of America, we believe taking care of tomorrow can help you make the most of today. Mutual of America Financial Group, retirement services and investments. Additional support has been provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you. From the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center in New York, Hari Srinivasan.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. There are new details emerging today about the Saudi military officer who killed 3 people and wounded 8 others at a Pensacola, Florida naval air station yesterday morning. Several officials identified the gunman as Second Lieutenant Mohammed Saeed Al-Shamrani, a member of Saudi Arabia's military who was enrolled in an international aviation program. 3 people died when Al-Shamrani opened fire in a classroom building. A local sheriff's deputy called to the scene reportedly killed the gunman in a shootout. One of the victims was identified today as 23-year-old Joshua Caleb Watson. In a Facebook post, Watson's brother wrote that after being shot multiple times, he made it outside and told the first response team where the shooter was. He died a hero. Joshua Watson was a recent Naval Academy graduate. Leaving the White House this afternoon for events in Florida tonight, President Trump told reporters Saudi Arabia's king plans to, quote, help families and that the investigation is continuing.
I spoke with the King of Saudi Arabia. They are devastated in Saudi Arabia. We're finding out what took place, whether it's one person or a number of people. And the king will be involved in taking care of families and loved ones. He feels very strongly. He's very, very devastated by what happened and what took place. Likewise, the Crown Prince. They are devastated by what took place in Pensacola. And I think they're going to help out the families very greatly. But right now, they send their condolences. And as you know, I've sent my condolences. It's a very shocking thing. And we'll find out. We'll get to the bottom of it very quickly.
This afternoon, the Associated Press reported that the gunman and others watched videos of mass shootings earlier in the week. And the AP also reported that other Saudi students on the scene videotaped the shooting. Joining us now from Pensacola is Associated Press reporter Brandon Farrington. Brandon, walk me through what it is that your sources are telling you about this video screening of mass shootings. What happened earlier in the week?
Basically, that there was a dinner party hosted by the shooter, and they watched videos of active shooting events. That's pretty much sums up what the source had to say. People who were at that party, or at least one person who was at that party besides the shooter, was among those that were outside the building and videotaping as the shooting took place.
Is there a sense that everyone who was at that party is at the very least in contact now with local authorities? Are there any of those people who are unaccounted for?
I'm told that whether it was people at that party or people who were involved in the videotaping, I'm not sure, but I am told that there are some Saudi students that are unaccounted for.
There had not been any indication between the dinner party and now? None of those people that were there saw this thing, thought, hey, you know what, this is pretty strange, I should tell someone?
Well, apparently not, but I do not have that level of detail.
Are they concerned that the students that were videotaping this were in on this? Is there any sense that this was a larger plan?
The person I spoke with had that sense. The official does believe that, based on briefings the official received, that this was a planned event.
Now, is there any idea what the individual who perpetrated this has been doing the entire time that he has been in the United States? Because we heard that he had just reported for classes or for the courses that he was taking not too long ago.
We're still waiting to get more information on that. The FBI is being, very cautious about what it's revealing in this case because it is still an active investigation. They have said in news briefings that they don't want to reveal details that may aid other people who are possibly involved in this. So very little has come out from official sources on who he was, why he did this, and anyone else who may have been involved.
Right, the why he did this, the motivation. I mean, you've got folks like Governor Rick Scott saying, hey, this is an act of terrorism. The FBI has not called it that yet. Is that correct?
They have not. No, they're again. I mean, the FBI is being very careful. I mean, they're assuring us that the details will come out, but because they're still actively investigating this, they're not providing much detail about what they know. Yes, there is speculation by Senator Scott and others that believe this is an act of terrorism, but officially they're not saying that yet.
I'm sorry, that's right, Senator Scott, not Governor. But let me also ask, what is the climate like on the campus there, or at least the people who would be going there? I know this is a Saturday now, but are people concerned about their safety going back there? I mean, this is a military campus.
I don't think people are concerned about going back there. We can't get on the campus right now. They're only letting people who live there, work there, or have official business there onto the base. Reporters, people who are just part of the public and are curious are being turned away. The cars are being checked on the way in and the way out. And so, but I can tell you the mood in town, that base is very important to this town, this community. And, people here are just stunned. This is kind of the lifeblood of Pensacola. And then, particularly having the Blue Angels based here, the people who work there, who serve there, are very near and dear to this community, and people are stunned. People are shocked. You're seeing an outpouring of support. I talked to a woman today who, gave blood. A lot of people have just been giving blood as just a way that they feel like they can help to do something to help the victims and the people who serve in this base.
I know we have another sort of press conference coming later this evening. Any indication on what they're likely to present?
That's a good question. I'm anxious to see it. Again, they've been very tight-lipped about the investigation. I hope they provide more details of why this happened, who this person is. And there are a lot of questions that have yet to be answered.
All right. Associated Press's Brandon Farrington joining us via Skype from Pensacola tonight. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
The House Judiciary Committee released a report today detailing the constitutional grounds for presidential impeachment. Staff of the Democratic majority on the committee authored the 55-page report, which addresses the history and purpose behind the impeachment process. Democrat members of the committee are meeting this weekend behind closed doors to draft formal articles of impeachment against President Trump, which the House could vote on as early as next week. An American graduate student was freed today in a prisoner swap with Iran after being held for more than 3 years. Shi-Wei Wang, a 38-year-old Princeton University graduate student, was conducting research in Iran when he was arrested in August of 2016 and charged with spying. U.S. officials denied the charges, and a UN human rights panel found that Iran had, quote, no legal basis for the arrest and detention. Wang was flown out of Tehran on a Swiss government plane and was met in Zurich by the State Department Special Representative for Iran, Brian Hook, this morning. In exchange, the United States freed Masoud Soleimani, an Iranian scientist convicted of violating American trade sanctions against Iran last year. Pacific Gas and Electric announced a $13.5 billion settlement late yesterday with victims of some of the deadliest fires in recent California history. PG&E's use of outdated equipment and negligence has been blamed for multiple fires, including the 2018 Camp Fire, which killed 85 people and destroyed the town of Paradise, and the 2017 wildfires in Northern California's wine country that killed at least 41 people. The multi-billion-dollar settlement is key to PG&E's plan to exit Chapter 11 bankruptcy and is still subject to court approval. In France, Yellow Vest activists marched through Paris today to protest changes to the country's national retirement system. The marches were mostly peaceful, but police used tear gas against some demonstrators who threw projectiles. Mass strikes began on Thursday against President Emmanuel Macron and the government's planned redesign of France's pension system. The protest disrupted public transit and left tourists and shoppers facing shuttered subway lines and near empty train stations. Iraqi officials said today that 25 people were killed and more than 130 others were wounded overnight during continued anti-government demonstrations. Unknown gunmen drove through a city square in Baghdad and opened fire on a crowd of demonstrators. Adding to the chaos, electricity was cut to the square, sending protesters fleeing the scene to seek shelter in darkness. Last night's attacks came only hours after the United States placed sanctions on the leader of an Iran-backed militia group that is accused of being behind attacks on the protesters. The United Kingdom goes to the polls on Thursday for what's been billed as the most important general election since the end of the Second World War. The Conservative Prime Minister Boris Johnson is hoping to get a big enough majority in Parliament so he can finally make Brexit happen. One of the most passionate battlegrounds in this election is Scotland, where not only does the majority oppose Brexit, but also nationalists are pushing for Scottish independence from the UK. NewsHour Weekend special correspondent Malcolm Brabant reports from Edinburgh.
Graduation at St Andrews, Scotland's most venerable university. It's the moment when students reach life's launch pad. In this election, many Scots are also hoping for liftoff.
It's not overstated when people say that this is a historic election.
Brad Mackay is a professor of strategic management and vice principal of St Andrews.
The outcome of this election is going to have a massive impact on the future of Scotland, on the future of the rest of the UK, indeed on the future of the EU for many, many years to come.
And we are gathered here for one simple purpose. And that purpose is to demand the right to choose a better future for our country.
The issue of Britain leaving the European Union has been incredibly divisive, and some experts believe that the emotional wounds may take more than a generation to heal, and fear that Brexit itself could ultimately lead to the breakup of the United Kingdom. Here in Scotland, more than anywhere else, this election is being framed in terms of a battle between independence and staying in the United Kingdom. The Scottish National Party, the SNP, wants to secure a second independence referendum to determine whether the country should leave the UK and become an independent state. The party lost the first referendum in 2014. In order to have a chance of a second bite at independence, the Nationalists and other opposition parties need to muster enough parliamentary seats together to defeat Prime Minister Boris Johnson's Conservatives. The SNP is desperate for Scotland to stay in the EU. Nicola Sturgeon is the First Minister of Scotland's semi-autonomous government.
A vote for the SNP on December the 12th is a vote to escape Brexit. It is a vote to put Scotland's future in Scotland's hands.
But if the Conservatives win a clear majority, Brexit will go ahead. Scotland will remain in the UK, and dreams of independence will have to be put on ice for years because the Conservatives won't allow a second referendum. Stephen Kerr is defending the parliamentary district of Stirling, which he won in 2017. He represents the Conservative Party, which opposes Scottish independence.
Why would you break up the most successful political union in the history of the world? Why would you break up the United Kingdom family? For what purpose? Other than some ideological obsession, which frankly has no basis in reality.
800 years ago, when the Scots were at war with the English and led by King Robert the Bruce, the military wisdom of the day was control Stirling and you control Scotland. Today, the parliamentary seat has a similar strategic significance.
Pick another one, just put it on there.
Right.
So you have got that side and just leapfrog each other. And when you need a new sheet, I'll come over and give you one.
Right.
This is a seat the Conservatives have to win. Last time around, they had a wafer-thin majority. Their only realistic opponents are the Nationalists, the SNP.
This is how the seat will be won. It's going to be won vote by vote, and that means a lot of time spent on doorsteps, having conversations with people.
No, I'm afraid I'm not going to vote for your worst enemy.
My what? I don't have a worst enemy.
Well, you know, I'm for Scottish independence, maybe more the heart.
If you had said to me you're going to vote for me, I would have done a jig down this road.
Undaunted, Kerr goes in pursuit of other potential supporters.
Forward and upward. We're certainly not going to be wiped out in Scotland. I mean, that's the narrative. The SNP have a narrative they wish to plant in people's minds.
Alan Smith is the SNP candidate opposing Stephen Kerr in Stirling.
There's no good news in Brexit. It's all shades of bad, and that's where I want to go to the House of Commons and to make these points to try and win these arguments.
How you doing? Come on.
Good
Good to see you.
I know, I'm SNP, definitely.
The UK is not one state. The UK is 4 countries that comprise a state. And the trouble being that some of the people who are in charge of the UK right now have never actually taken the time to understand what our perspective actually is.
That perspective is laid out in an SNP campaign video.
Right now, Scotland is being dragged out of Europe against our will. It's a Brexit we never voted for. Forced on us by a Tory government we never voted for. A government led by a Prime Minister whose priorities are not ours.
That Prime Minister, of course, is Boris Johnson, who opposes a second vote on Brexit, as well as a second vote on Scottish independence.
Do we want another referendum? On Scotland? That's why this manifesto is so aptly named. We don't want another referendum on Scotland. We don't. And we rule it out because why? Because we don't want to destroy the most successful political partnership of the last 300 years.
Boris Johnson's core message is to get Brexit done, to honour the outcome of the 2016 referendum on European Union membership. Early in the Scottish campaign, he toured a distillery, making Scotland's national tipple, buoyed by the Bank of England's assessment that his proposed Brexit deal with Europe would ease economic uncertainty.
What the Governor of the Bank of England said quite rightly is that when we get Brexit done, it will immediately unleash investment and confidence into the UK economy. And that's what I'm saying to people.
Scotland used to be the fiefdom of the Labour Party, whose leader Jeremy Corbyn is promising the most radical socialist programme in generations. The Nationalists say a coalition with Labour is possible if Corbyn guarantees a second referendum on Scottish independence. But Corbyn says if elected, he won't agree to that, at least not right away.
No referendum in the first term for Labour government, because I think we need to concentrate completely on investment across Scotland. The issue is the needs of the people of Scotland, and a Labour government in Westminster would be in a position to deliver that.
But most pollsters agree that if any party is going to be buried in Scotland on election day, it is Labour. Analyst Mark Diffley says the Nationalists have replaced Labour as the party of Scotland's working class. He's been studying the ratings of Johnson, Corbyn and Scottish First Minister Sturgeon.
The Prime Minister is particularly unpopular in Scotland. He has a satisfaction rating of something like -60 or -70, and Mr Corbyn has about the same, whereas the First Minister tends to split the public down the middle.
Back at St Andrews, Brexit is causing anxiety. The university worries about attracting the best international talent and of losing European grants for research projects. The Vice Principal says Scottish entrepreneurs doubt the Prime Minister's Brexit confidence.
Well, Scottish business is very concerned. The EU is a huge export market for Scottish businesses, but also when you think about supply chains which are integrated across the UK and the EU, when you think about attracting even skilled labour and different types of labour for business, it's of tremendous concern.
Pro-Scottish independence historian Leslie Orr says England is responsible for creating barriers, particularly the faction supporting more restrictive immigration policies.
You know, Scotland's aspiration is to be a progressive, outward-looking, inclusive nation, you know, kind of rooted in civic nationalism. And actually one of the issues that Scotland has that diverges from England is the hostile environment that's the current government policy that's, you know, doing its best to keep people out, to exclude people.
Polls show that young people are driving the independence movement. But entrepreneur Harry Turner is going against the tide. He's hesitant about investing more in his catering business because of economic uncertainty. In this election, his vote will go to a party that opposes Scottish independence.
Personally, I think if Scotland went independent, I would move to England because I'm that worried about the economic situation.
Such views are music to the Conservatives. Pollster Mark Diffley.
In terms of the outcome on December the 13th, the Conservatives may do slightly better than one may have predicted a little while ago.
In Stirling, voter John Macmillan has no time for Scottish independence.
It would be a ridiculous thing to do. It wouldn't be, emotionally, it would satisfy some people, but sensibly, it's absolutely ludicrous. And I very much hope that we won't be given the opportunity to have yet another referendum. Referendums are supposed to make decisions. We made the decision last time, and that's the way it should stay.
Just so hard that so many people want the best for Scotland, and yet we can't get it because we're overruled by England.
Now is the time to choose a new path for Scotland.
The SNP's Alan Smith hopes that new path will lead to a winning alliance with the Labour Party.
We'll use that to build common cause to stop Brexit. We'll build common cause to make clear that it's Scotland's choice to have a referendum, and how people want to vote in that referendum's a wider question.
His opponent, Stephen Kerr, dreads the Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, moving into the Prime Minister's official residence in London.
That man should be nowhere near number 10 Downing Street. Almost within weeks, our country would be in a financial crisis as confidence seeped away, as capital fled the country, because the manifesto that Labour are standing on is a Venezuelan recipe.
This has been the most bitter election in decades. The next government will need to build bridges. Because of Brexit, that may be impossible.
For continuing coverage of Britain's election, visit pbs.org/newshour. We will have more on the investigation of the Pensacola Air Base shooting on air and online, and we will preview the coming impeachment hearings with special correspondent Jeff Greenfield tomorrow on the broadcast. That's all for this edition of PBS NewsHour Weekend. I'm Hari Srinivasan. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.
PBS NewsHour Weekend is made possible by Bernard and Irene Schwartz, Sue and Edgar Wackenheim III, the Cheryl and Philip Milstein family, Rosalind P. Walter, in memory of George O'Neill, Barbara Hope Zuckerberg, Charles Rosenblum. We try to live in the moment, to not miss what's right in front of us. At Mutual of America, we believe taking care of tomorrow can help you make the most of today. Mutual of America Financial Group, retirement services and investments. Additional support has been provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
You're watching PBS.